Hey, welcome to the Pod Couple Podcast. I'm Pod Guy.
I'm Pod Gal.
And we've got with us today Jeff Carpenter.
Hi, hello there.
And I am so pleased to announce we have a very special guest. Shanon Sinn is here, and he is a researcher of folklore, hauntings, and mythology. And he takes on a very journalistic perspective. He's also the author of a new book, which is coming out October 10th. The book is The Haunting of Vancouver Island. He has another book, The Way of the Wraith. In addition to being a writer, he is a member of the British Columbia Ghost and Hauntings Research Society, Paranormal Studies and Inquiries of Canada, a researcher, an infantry veteran, a forager, photographer, and YouTuber. Welcome, Shanon.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, so we are so pumped about you and your book and all that you do. So you're a very interesting gentleman.
Thank you.
Well, how about starting off and telling us a little bit about the book that you have coming out?
Yes, The Haunting of Vancouver Island is kind of a journalistic approach to hauntings across Vancouver Island. I wanted to write a book that focused on our geographical area because no one has done that yet, but I also wanted it to be very grounded as there's a lot of ghost tourism and a lot of sensationalism from reality TV and other areas. And I also wanted it to include First Nations content because different geographical areas across North America claim to be about a certain area but don't include Indigenous stories. But that being said, I also didn't want to appropriate any stories. So I've interviewed Chief James Swan of Manhouset. He's a hereditary chief up there, and used a lot of different sources as well. The whole book is very source-based so that it's not me retelling stories, it's me researching them.
Excellent. Sounds very fascinating.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I really like the approach because it does, to me, gives it way more credibility.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of, I guess, different books out there about this subject, and some of them take that hardcore skeptical approach, which I don't appreciate either, because sources, different studies say 30%, some as high as 40-some% of people have had experiences. And I wanted to write something that accepts that people have these experiences, but not promote my own personal beliefs. So I talk about different possibilities in the book and not necessarily try to promote anything as far as, this is what ghosts are, which is an approach on the other end of the spectrum. A lot of people take the approach, obviously, that ghosts are spirits of the dead, and then others that they're hallucinations or some sort of mental health type of thing. And maybe there's a variety of explanations, but I think that whatever it is, Vancouver Island has the best array of stories that I'm aware of in one geographical area. And being on an island, its borders are very fixed, although I have included a story from Quadra Island and also Newcastle Island. As an extension of Vancouver Island, I guess you could say. We have everything here, including stories of wild people of the woods. Some people, again, they're very mainstream ideas of Sasquatch. And then there's a lot of sea serpent stories around the island as well. And I propose in the book that these may be more the same sort of experience as ghosts or hauntings, as First Nations people on Vancouver Island traditionally believed.
Oh, it's so interesting. I cannot wait to get my hands on this book. So October 10th cannot come fast enough for me.
Yeah, we want you to sign our book.
Yeah, we do want you to sign our book.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when did you start your study of say, supernatural phenomenon on Vancouver Island?
Well, it kind of happened by accident, and I talk about it a lot in the introduction. Just my path and how I became a writer, I guess you could say. My first experience happened in the late 90s, and it's included in the book. That's my first experience on Vancouver Island. I've had experiences when I was a kid as well. And in the late 90s, I had an experience. I saw a light I couldn't really explain around some other things that were happening when I was camping on Keha Beach near Bamfield. And like I said, that's a chapter in the book. And then when I was a kid, one of my first experiences was that I saw this green cloud kind of forming in the basement of my home in Saskatchewan, or our home. I was a kid, it wasn't my home, but kind of rolling into the corner. And I actually ran away before it could fully form, because to me it looked like it was starting to form into a figure. Mm-hmm. And I continued to see this throughout my life, and I'd wake up and see it kind of hovering above me. And even though I had other experiences, which I share in the book as well, I kind of dismissed it and stopped believing that it was anything other than a sleep hallucination. And then it was the year 2001, I was in a relationship at the time, and I woke up and I saw this green cloud above me, and I'm kind of just, watching it somewhat detached and amused. And all of a sudden I became aware that my girlfriend beside me was in distress, I guess you could say. And I asked her, what's wrong? And she said to me, don't you see that green cloud? And it sent shivers up and down my spine, because like this whole time I've been dismissing it as an adult. And I never saw it again after that. So it felt like it was kind of there to verify that whatever it was there and exists. And from time to time throughout my life, objects will move around. Like I won't see them move around, but like I'll wake up and something will be in a completely different room, or something that I know I haven't left, even though there's nobody in my home with me.
That happens a lot to me, usually with car keys or wallet. Never find them.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes this would be something large. Like I have a statue of I guess you could say it's like something I picked up when I was in Cyprus, and it's like kind of a statue of, I guess it's Aphrodite, and I just have it in my bathroom, kind of facing outwards on the counter. And like I went in there one time in the morning, and it was facing the mirror, like that type of thing. Or like other examples where like close curtains and then find them wide open, or things like that, like stuff that's like really obvious. And I live alone, so it's not like
somebody else did it.
Yeah.
So, and how do you feel? Does it scare you, or like what kind of emotions do you experience?
Well, I've become more and more curious compared to anything else, because like I've had so many of these experiences, and now I've talked to so many other people who've had these experiences. It feels like whatever I've kind of experienced is positive, but some places feel more negative. Like people have experiences that are more, I guess you'd say, terrifying. And I've had those experiences as well. There's a very famously haunted place near my hometown called the St. Louis Ghost Light. And Canada Post actually featured it on one of their stamps in the last couple of years as one of the haunted places in Canada. And it's a place that almost everybody I grew up with has gone to and seen this. And it's just a ghost light that you see. And I actually have a video of it on my YouTube. It isn't super compelling other than it's a light, but you just see it appear and reappear over and over again. And it's on the old train tracks. So some people believe that there's a story going around. I've never been able to verify that there is a train disaster there, and a conductor was killed. But when I look into the old archives, I can never find anything to prove that happened. There's been theories proposed that it's headlights in the distance, although it's a single light, and I've seen it up close. I've seen it looking both directions. And if you look on like Google Map, for example, you can see that there's really no direct place that this one light could come from. So that theory is pretty easy to kind of toss aside. But, with all of these things, like that one had a really negative feel like you'd kind of be scared, even though there's no really explanation for it. And a lot of people claim their cars wouldn't start and different things. It didn't feel kind, whereas like whatever's kind of the times that I've had other experiences, it didn't necessarily feel negative. So I'm still open to like different possibilities of what it is, although like I say, most people will just automatically assume it's a spirit of the dead. But there's so many different ideas out there, many of them that I touch on in the book, that could offer other explanations, as well as like one of the more, I guess, grounded theories is sound wave hallucinations. Certain places that have been haunted have been found to emit a high level of frequency that isn't necessarily, you aren't able to hear it with your naked ear. And those are the places that have kind of a negative connotation with them. So that's one idea. And then there's a Buddhist Tibetan idea of the tulpa, which is the idea that when you start believing in something, it starts to become real. So in theory, that could explain a lot of the different entities that the ancients believed in as well, or even people hundreds of years ago, or even something like Sasquatch, as that becomes more and more of a mainstream idea, which wasn't really a mainstream idea 100 years ago, in a sense. I mean, people could make an argument that it was. So there's lots of different ideas. And then, of course, you got like Stephen Hawking, who believes in like other dimensions. And then there's religious and philosophical ideas. So, and again, how do we know that they all don't have different explanations? We just classify them all together, and then mainstream kind of ideas says, oh, these are the spirits of the dead, and we're gonna chase them around with the see in the dark camera. And I just kind of don't really buy that mainstream idea as like as factual as it's promoted.
So speaking of a camera that can see in the dark and stuff like that, have you been on like a ghost hunt like that and had the different equipment? And what are your thoughts on that kind of ghost hunting?
Well, I tend to shy away from it. I have been 2 investigations on Vancouver Island. They're both in the book. One was at the Schooner Restaurant in Tofino. The most compelling evidence there was the interviews with the staff, because they were very kind of, I guess you'd say, regular people, like not the type of people you'd expect to make things up. And a lot of them collaborated what they'd seen together. A lot of them are seasonal workers and really there's no benefit from them making up this story. And then Harriet Bay Inn we went to as well. Both of these investigations are with a travel blogger and beer blogger, Shanon Sinn, that lives in Nanaimo here. He had set up both of these investigations for us to do together, and I'm very grateful for that. He's a good friend of mine. And I guess the second one, the Harriet Bay Inn one, there was more going on when we were there, but the staff, I guess you would say, were more whimsical. I don't mean that as a negative, but they were like kind of more believers in ghosts and such. Having such a history there, they've been investigated by different groups several times. So when it comes to photos and images, I'm very skeptical. I think that like the very famous image of the Gray Lady that you see often if you Google ghost images that haven't been debunked, that seems kind of compelling to me, because that was a couple of guys that were there for another purpose and taking pictures, and then they'd seen this and one of them took a picture. And it appeared, I think it was like in a magazine about home and cottages or something when the image was first published.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't like your quote unquote ghost hunters. Nowadays, it would be so hard because images are so easy to fake and manipulate. And on top of that, most images I see are are like a reflection in a window or something really hazy in the distance, and somebody has to circle it and explain what it is. And to me, that really doesn't say anything. Other equipment, I've heard compelling evidence with audio recorders. The idea is, of course, if you ask questions and play it back, sometimes there's kind of a more subtle voice that sounds like it's answering. And other than that, I'm pretty much all other equipment. I don't really feel, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And I have a question about, I was really interested in your interview with the Chief James Swan. Yeah. And I've read your interview on your blog. I was wondering if the one in the book goes more in detail about that, or is it basically the same, or?
It's very similar. It's the same interview. I've edited it as far as like what questions I've included and where.
Right.
There's a chapter that mostly focuses just on the Ahousaht area.
Right.
And then a couple of the answers that he gave shows up in other chapters, like the chapter on sea serpents and shapeshifters, for example. He's a friend of mine from the military.
Right.
We met during pre-deployment training for Afghanistan, and he injured his back and was unable to go overseas. But we stayed close friends, and we're very connected. We have similar ideas as far as like the natural world being more of a spiritual kind of kingdom, is the easiest way I guess I could explain it. So, like when you take anything from the forest, like if you're foraging or whatever, I try to be grateful and thankful. And a lot of those kind of teachings he's taught me, and I've had other people teach me some of those in the past as well. So I try to be very aware that there is this kind of parallel thing going on. And because I explained, I'm also very skeptical at the same time. I like to think that even if that isn't the case on some level, I think it's very good to be grateful for your food and what you're picking up around you. So especially if you're taking something from the forest, try to leave something behind if you can, like a gift of food or some water if it's a dry season or whatever.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's a good lesson for everybody.
And when was the last time you talked to him?
Yesterday.
Oh yeah.
He stopped at my place yesterday. His one of his girls had a rugby game. I think it was up in Campbell River.
Oh,
so they were over, and it's always good to play with his kids and talk to him. So he's always. It seems like we have that friendship side, so it's easy for us to just be friends. But every time I visit with him, he seems like he's given me something to think about.
Right. So you kind of connect on that spiritual level, you think, with him a little bit.
Yeah. I think that I tend to be very selective on the people in my life, and I like people that are very grateful and positive and have practices of gratitude. So I highly value his friendship and other people that kind of look at the world the same way.
And I think I read, did you used to live on a boat? Was that in Campbell River?
So I have a boat up in Tofino. It's an old boat that I fixed up, and I try to spend as much time in the summer as I can there. But just, I guess, to be completely honest, I've had a lot of struggles with my health. As I was saying before the interview, I came back from Afghanistan with cancer, and then had a recurrence of cancer and deal with a lot of side effects from the chemo. So when I'm feeling well, ideally I'm up there and I'm kind of fixing it up, and it's a nice place to be, just kind of out of the city and peaceful and relaxing. But sometimes I'm not as able to spend time up there as I'd like.
So that's kind of like where your chosen place would be if you could spend as much time there as you could.
Well, I see it as more of my getaway.
Right.
I think because I have friends that live up there all the time. If you're up there all the time, it kind of loses its magic to a certain degree. And I actually really like living in Nanaimo geographically because it's so perfectly situated, like close to Victoria, close to Vancouver, close to an international airport, still fairly big with everything you need, but there's so much nature around, and very central to Vancouver Island, so I can go surfing, or go hiking, or do whatever I want. So as far as, and then of course the climate, so the middle of the winter you can go hiking and it's not that big of a deal if you don't mind the rain. So as far as Tofino, I don't know if I'd ever live there full time.
Right.
Well, I've got a question, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but one of the places that I absolutely love is Newcastle Island. And I think there's a chapter in the book, and my understanding is that it has a lot of activity in terms of, you know, the paranormal and such. So is there anything you can tell us about that?
I have included a chapter about Kanaka Pete in the book. And Kanaka Pete, as anybody that lives in the Nanaimo area knows, is one of our more famous stories of the region. Probably with Bebbin House. Bebbin House and Kanaka Pete are the two biggest stories here. And I talk about the Kanaka Pete story, the historical ghost sighting, as well as him being buried there, and the idea that he still possibly haunts the island, although that seems to be more of an urban legend. Most of the places that have activity associated with him are actually more in Nanaimo.
Oh, interesting.
And can you tell us a little bit more about that story?
Sure. So Kanaka Pete, Peter Kakua was his name. Kanaka was a term given to Hawaiian people that sometimes has negative associations with it, but literally means free man. There's a lot of the Hawaiian people here in Vancouver Island's early days helping the HBC company with, I guess, the exploitation of resources from the island. And he was living in Nanaimo and murdered his whole family with an axe. His wife, her parents, and his small daughter. She was just a baby. And his wife and parents were First Nations. And his defense was that he was more following his Hawaiian traditional beliefs, so he shouldn't be as punished as other people. His that defense didn't really hold up, although it seemed to persuade the jury to some degree. There's actually two cases. They split up the murders, so there's two cases against him, and one of them he was found for I believe it was his wife. He was found lesser guilty because of these beliefs, and then the family, he was found guilty, and then he was eventually hanged. His the reason that didn't really stick was there were so many other Hawaiian people here, and they weren't committing murder. That kind of caused a problem because the murder, none of the First Nations wanted him buried in their cemeteries, and because of his claiming that these are his beliefs that would have been labeled as pagan at the time, he wasn't able to be buried in any of the church cemeteries. So they weren't sure what to do with him, so they buried him where he was captured, which was Kanaka Bay, which is, it's called Kanaka Bay today, on the dark side of Newcastle Island. I say the dark side because it's the side that faces away from Nanaimo, so it faces away from the city lights, and it's pretty secluded if you're over there on that side at night. So he was buried there, and then during some resource development later, accidentally dug up, and they identified him by his shoes that were still apparently in really good condition, and then he was reburied. So the story, the urban legend, is that he wanders the beach over there and looks for teenagers and such to attack or kill, but there's no real evidence of any teenagers going missing or kids or anything like that. But he spent his last night in the Bastion, and the Bastion, which is run by Nanaimo Museum, has been very open in the past about the activity there, including cannonballs being heard rolling on the floor on the upper level when no one was up there, and other people have had experiences of hearing voices and such. So there's been different theories in the past of who could possibly be haunting the Bastion, but I propose that it's Peter Kakua, because he spent his last night there. He was hanged just outside, although a lot of stories say he was hanged on Protection Island, which is completely false. And there's already been a sighting of him in the neighborhood, a historical sighting that I'll kind of leave as a mystery for the book.
Oh, interesting.
Very interesting.
So where was he reburied? Like in the same spot?
Somewhere he's still buried today, somewhere in Kanaka Bay on the beach there,
okay.
Somewhere in that area. So I don't know the exact location. I don't think anybody else does, but he's somewhere there.
Oh, that's interesting. I actually didn't know that level of detail of the story. So thank you for that. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, very interesting. Another one you had mentioned is the Beban House, and I've always been fascinated with the Beban House. So you've obviously been in there.
I have, but not as an investigator at all. It's mostly what I did with, like, every chapter is handled differently. They're different. So we've investigated different, those two locations. And then a lot of them, I research all the sources instead. And I'll mention all the different sources and the people that have come forward with different claims. So when it comes to the Beban House, with Tourism Nanaimo in there in the past, they were very public about it. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different evidence, I guess you could say, or testimonial evidence with that. And as I was researching that chapter, I also found somebody who'd had a personal experience there. So her account is in the book as well. The thing, like one thread throughout the book is... we probably all remember that show, Creepy Canada. Well, most of the stories that they've promoted have turned out to be false. One of the episodes, I guess, they would do segments of different episodes, but the Beban House, a lot of what they're saying in that episode turned out not to be entirely correct. But, like with anything, I researched how the building got there, who the original owner was, and just included all these different sources.
Wow.
Yeah, really interesting. So I'm just going to go through and read some of the chapters so people can hear what's coming in the book. So I won't read them all, but some of them are The Spirit of the Wolf, The Woman in Chains, Fantan Alley, The Mystery of Nanaimo's Old Fire Hall, The Haunting of the Schooner Restaurant, Forbidden Plateau, Investigating and Haunting of the Harriet Bay Inn. So there's 27 chapters, including the introduction, conclusion, and I mean, it looks amazing to me.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know more about all of these stories.
So do I.
And so, Shannon, I'm wondering if you would go to some of these places with us that are local and, tell us about what you know about these places.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be open to that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to ask about Cameron Lake. I know a few years ago there was an investigation into a sea serpent or whatever, a lake monster in Cameron Lake. Do you talk about that at all? About the one the investigation that was like a few years ago, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. In the chapter Sea Serpents and Shapeshifters, mm-hmm. There's a very common theme on Vancouver Island, around the outside of the island and on several lakes. It's not just Cameron Lake. Cameron Lake, Shawnigan Lake, Cowichan Lake, Sprout Lake, to name a few, that there's stories of these sea monsters, or I guess they'd be lake monsters. The thing that's fascinating about Cameron Lake is that the old story, if you've been on the island for a while is that it was a bottomless lake,
Right.
but it's not very deep at all if you look at the different maps available. So when they did that investigation and it was in the media and stuff, they kind of really backed off once they found that out, because their approach is cryptozoology, right? They want to prove that there are animals or creatures that exist that science hasn't discovered yet. So that's there is one theory that's been proposed that there's kind of caves connecting Horn Lake, and it swims back and forth. But realistically, for there to be such a large creature in this lake that is confined to a lake and a physical breathing animal, it's not very likely at all. So I do talk about that, and it's really interesting because the sea serpent, again, seen all over the place, often by people that are pretty well respected, and sometimes groups of people. So it's like that one type of encounter that larger bodies of people will have seen. It's that First Nations traditionally believe that it's a spirit being or a supernatural being, and there's lots of sources for that. The thing that connects these modern sightings with the First Nations accounts are the descriptions. The head is horse-like, moose-like, camel-like, usually described like that, and it is said to have hair on its head. So if you actually see the, and this is modern people saying it has hair like kind of whatever on its head. So if you see First Nations art, a lot of times it's drawn with this, or their masks will have this hair on it as well. In the First Nations art, there's also a lot of times very pointy, sharp teeth, and people who've seen it say that it has a very frightening aspect to it. So describing this creature, whatever it is interesting that it would be seen in lakes and around the island. There's also a couple accounts of it on land. So what does that mean? If it's an actual creature, it's pretty strange that it hasn't been discovered. If it's completely made up, the similarities are really interesting. Someone would have to look at why people would come up with these exact same details. So is it something similar to a spirit? I think that there's a good case to be made that it could be.
And do you talk about other, say, First Nations legends in the book?
I do. The ones that were either I found through research, through reputable sources like elder sources, or that were told to me by James. I don't really like the term legend so much. Right. I tend to use the term traditional belief. The reason is a lot of times the stories are still a part of a different group's beliefs, but at the same time you can't say that everybody believes it literally. Some people would believe it more literally, where some people would see it as a metaphor, I guess, similar to how different people view the Bible. Right. Some people actually think Jonah lived in the belly of a whale, and other people think that that's a huge metaphor for something that's really, really grounded, right? So I tend to shy away from the term legend for that reason, and tried to include across Vancouver Island stories from everywhere. So the three main groups on Vancouver Island are the Coast Salish, the Nuu-chah-nulth, and the Kwakwaka'wakw. So there's stories from all three, and some, I guess, areas are more prominent than others. Like the story of the wolf is about Stakia in the Chatham Islands, Discovery Islands, which is the wolf that appeared on the small island away from Victoria out of the blue and still hasn't left. And there's very strange ideas of why it would be there and such. But the song he's there say that it's a reincarnation of their chief, which isn't unprecedented either, because we've also got Luna up at Nootka Sound, which is a hugely famous story, the documentary The Whale, where they said that their chief had reincarnated as a whale as well. So someone can easily be like, oh, that's impossible. Maybe it is impossible, but the behavior of these animals and where they end up and how they interact with humans or not, or choose not to, is really quite profound. Like in the documentary, the whale, there's scientists even saying that they found his behavior uncanny.
Interesting.
Fascinating. Just listening to you is just mesmerizing. I love it. So thank you very much for being a guest on the show. And
I've got a question, and this is like, it's tied into the wolf. It's not really about the book, but I noticed on your website, so your blog, you have some pictures with wolves, and I can't remember their names, but I'm just wondering who they are and how did you end up with the wolves?
Well, that the pictures of wolves that I have on my blog is with the lighter colored wolf. His name is Scrappy Dave.
Oh yeah, right.
And the beautiful female wolf, her name is Flora. And those are two of the wolves at the Northern Lights Recovery Center near Banff in Golden. So the idea there is that they've taken wolves that can't be reintroduced to the wild for one reason or another, and given people an opportunity, a place for them to learn about wolves and interact with wolves, because they're the only species on Earth that we've deliberately tried to make extinct multiple times. I mean, we've done a really bad job with a lot of animals in the world as far as overhunting them for ivory or trophy hunting or whatever, but the wolf, over and over and over again, we've tried to make it extinct historically because of our fear for it. So this center has created a place where people can go and interact with them to a certain degree. So that I've gone there more than once, and that I took you can go on a photographic walk for a certain amount of money, and they take a small group of people out, and it just happened to be that I was the only person that day, and because of talking back and forth with them and my own passion for wolves, I explained to them, they ended up taking me out alone with these wolves, and ended up, because the wolves took a liking to me, ended up allowing me to interact with them more closely than normal. So Flora at one point grabbed my beard with her
Wow.
mouth and was pulling on it, and they said that that's kind of a form of acceptance. So to me, that was like one of the greatest days, I guess, of my life. I have such a feeling of kinship with wolves, and I relate to them on a lot of levels. When I hear them howling, I just get so moved by it, and when I see them or I'm around them, I'm also kind of touched by them as well. So I think that chapter in the book will make more sense to some people, maybe knowing that's the story I just shared, because I became fascinated with that story of Stakia, and before the island was closed to overnight camping and stuff, I actually, James Swan brought me there, and we went on shore, and then he left, and I stayed overnight there, and just trying to connect with the wolf from a distance. Obviously, I don't want to jeopardize its safety at all, because there's nothing worse for any wild animal than it getting too used to humans. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I was able to hear it howling overnight and saw it in the distance. At first, I wasn't sure I saw it, because there was a ledge I could see from where you camp, and all of a sudden there was like a white thing up there, and I thought, is that a bird or is that a rock? I didn't see that there before. And then after it was there for some time, it vanished. And that area is, when you go up there, you see that it's all like flattened grass where it sits and watches. So I did see it from a distance, and it's not if you see pictures of Stickia, which there's a picture that is shared in the book, taken by a photographer in Victoria named Cheryl Alexander, pardon me. And you can see that he's not completely white, but there's light colors in him. So, and there's no birds on the island. There's no other mammals on the island. There used to be, I guess geese would land or whatever, but he chased them off. Like, it was one of those areas that was being destroyed by geese, and it's kind of come back now. Kind of similar to the Yellowstone story, where the presence of a wolf just kind of puts everything back in balance.
Yeah, that's such an amazing story. It brings tears to my eyes when I watch it. So yeah, it's amazing.
Very cool experience.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if he's the only mammal, like, how does he what does he eat?
He does eat birds. I shouldn't say that there's no birds there, but there's no
geese.
No big birds that like are there living there and like hanging out. So he'll eat, I guess, ducks. He's been known to eat, but mostly seals. He mostly subsides on seals and different invertebrates found in the intertidal zone. And I guess you would say like sea life, like probably mussels and such.
So is he what they refer to as a sea wolf?
Yeah. Basically, they say the sea wolves, the smaller wolves that are known to swim short distances, not any distance, to explain how he got there, because the nearest place for him to swim would be the city of Victoria. Although people have theorized that he zigzagged through the city and then swam out to this island and decided not to leave. But there's a lot of kind of things that don't quite make sense about that story, because the nearest wolf pack is way up by Shawnigan Lake. So it's quite a ways away, but the wolves will eat a lot of fish and things in the intertidal zones and are known to swim between islands short distances.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's fascinating. I'm excited about that chapter. Chapter 1. Chapter 2, sorry. First chapter after the introduction.
But it seems like, you relate a lot of your stories to the First Nations, say, inhabitation of the island, since they're here first and have experienced the island for a very long time. I'm just thinking, do you have any related to certain, like the Kwakawak stories from them, or?
The Kwakwakiwak, mostly that mostly comes up in the Wild People of the Woods chapter, right? Because part of what I'm doing throughout the book is I start at the very south of part of the island.
Right.
I start with the Spirit of the Wolf because it's more, I guess you could say, rural and wild, and I wanted to establish at the beginning more what Vancouver Island is about, and then we move right into the city. Right. And as we make our way up the island, I focus more on the more populated areas have the most stories, of course, like Victoria and Nanaimo, and then there's stories from different areas. But, generally, if you draw a line across the island between Campbell River and Howsett, for example, we consider these areas the North Island, and we even in Nanaimo, but especially in Victoria. But really, that just divides the island in half. So you've got these huge areas, mostly not very populated, and the stories of ghosts as actual hauntings or spirits goes becomes way less, and the stories increase a lot more as far as lights in the sky, which I don't focus on very much at all, and then the Wild People of the Woods.
Right.
And again, I propose that that there is probably something more similar to a spirit than the cryptozoology approach. And Alert Bay is a prime example because it was in the news several times over the last couple of years because of sightings by the big house and in the cemetery. And there's no animals or real wilderness on Alert on. I'm sorry if I say this wrong, but I think it's Cormont Island. I know I butchered that, but the island that Alert Bay is on is not, there's no wilderness there. So why would this undiscovered man-ape, this elusive undiscovered man-ape, swim to this island that's, for all intents and purposes, heavily populated, just to be seen in the cemetery and by their religious big house, by several witnesses, including a person that got a recording of it howling that they shared on the news, that you can still, I believe, find on YouTube if you look for it. And then I start talking about how the Sasquatch, for lack of a better term, has been sighted all over North America in cemeteries. Why would an elusive, undiscovered man-ape visit cemeteries so much? So there's something interesting to that. And the second point is that these stories across Vancouver Island, like Alert Bay area, the Kwakwaka'wakw, they have the story of Zunaqua, which is female. The creature is female. It's not both sexes, it's female. Her husband, Bukwas, is 3 feet tall, also has monkey-like aspects, and he's called the King of Ghosts. So a lot of times with the cryptozoology kind of mainstream reality TV thing, they take First Nation stories all over the place and say, see, they believe this, so did they, when it's not even a fit at all. The Nochilmath, similar story. Buckmeese, I think it is. Bookmeese. I'm sorry if I get that wrong, but also female. Very clearly female, not both sexes. It's a female spirit being that crosses over from other dimensions. There's, up by the Holberg area, there is a Kwakwaka'wakw story of Big Figure that is the closest I'm familiar with that could match the Sasquatch story on Vancouver Island. And that is basically giant type figures that live in houses similar to us. And they're described similar to Sasquatch, but they're very similar to us. Like, they use tools and everything. Right. But all across the island, there's stories of Sasquatch-like creatures that don't match at all what cryptozoologists try to say they do. That being said, there's a gentleman from the Alert Bay area named Thomas Seaweed. Seaweed. I'm hoping I'm saying his name right. He First Nations Kwakwaka'wakw, and he is part of the Sasquatch investigation type scene, and he balances the looking for this undiscovered creature with the First Nations lore, which I find really fascinating. And there's also I talk about Dr. Binderningle, who is he lives in the Comox area. He's a wildlife biologist that moved to Vancouver Island in the 70s to specifically study Sasquatch. And so he's got books out as well, and he's very grounded in his approach. So as far as modern stuff goes, he's the guy. And Thomas Seaweed, I'm sorry, Thomas, if you hear this and I'm saying your last name wrong, but he is, I guess, the bridge between the two, and he's has some very fascinating interviews on, there's a Sasquatch podcast that he has. There's a 3-part interview there that if a person is interested, I highly recommend.
Okay, wow. I'll find it and I'll put it in our show notes so there'll be links to it.
Yeah. That's great, yeah.
Okay. So one question I have just about the book and such. So it's being published October 10th. Can people pre-order the book?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's... I have talked to different bookstores who have copies on order that people have already placed holds on. It's available through all bookstores to pre-order on Vancouver Island, and it's also available through Chapters Indigo site and independent sites and Amazon as well. So it's available for pre-order everywhere, and that'll include Kindle copies and different form of e-copies as well.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah. And what about, do you have, after the book comes out on October 10th, are you doing any readings, or are there any events?
There's a reading at Bolin Books on October 23rd at 7 p.m. And then there's a reading and book launch at Vancouver Island University on October 27th. And there's a third one in the works right now, but all of those dates are available on my website and through social media. I can send you the posters as I get them.
That would be excellent. And I will put everything in the notes for the show as well.
Oh,
so,
excellent.
Okay, perfect.
And what's your website, by the way, Shanon?
It's livinglibraryblog.com.
Okay.
But it can also be accessed through ShanonSinn.com or ShanonSinn.ca. Either will redirect you right to the site.
Okay, awesome. And are you on social media at all?
Yeah, I'm on several different channels. I'm most active on Twitter, mostly every day. And then, of course, my site is a WordPress site. I do have a Facebook page. I'm also on Instagram, which I tend to go in phases where I'm more busy and then less busy with it. I'm also on Goodreads as well.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Shanon Sinn, for joining us today. And you too, Jeff Carpenter.
No problem.
And we're the Pod Couple. I'm Pod Guy.
I'm Pod Gal.
And we'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.